What's up, everybody? Once again, it is I, James, coming to you from the Nerdy Mewzings podcast studio. I'm excited to be joined today by Chris from Cheddar Comics. How you doing today, Chris?
Good, James. Thanks so much for having me on. It's a true honor to be here.
Hey, my pleasure. Like we were talking about a little bit before, it seems we kind of run in the same friend circle online, but this is our first time getting to see each other's faces on here and interact face to face and chat a little bit. So I just really appreciate you coming on today. How's your day going?
It's good, just same old life of a comic book seller, just packing orders and getting them out there and hearing that people are happy and, real lucky.
I was going to ask you, do you find that things pop off as we get closer to the holidays as far as sales? Are you getting a lot of people wanting to get gifts for loved ones? And do you see a little bit of a spike in your orders? Or are you pretty consistent throughout the year with as far as that goes?
It's pretty, I'm pretty lucky. I've been doing the Instagram live sales for, I think I started last October. So I have a live sale every Thursday. And I'm sure as an instructor that consistency is key.
Yes.
So I've noticed, I noticed a little dip. Some guys dip out and say, hey, sorry, it's Christmas, because we're
take a little break.
Yeah, I got to take a little break. And then other people seem to be popping off. So it's kind of evening out,
Yeah. Well, that's great. So do you mainly stick with Instagram as far as your selling, or are you across a lot of different platforms?
Yeah. So I used to, the kind of the short version is I used to sell on Etsy and eBay. And I had an Etsy shop for maybe 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As a side thing, like a really small shop. And then I sold on Whatnot for a little bit and experimented. And then everything kind of started to really narrow down. And I have a wife and a 4-year-old now. So
gotcha.
I'm the breadwinner somehow selling comics. So,
hey man, if it
works,
it works.
Yeah, exactly. So last year I pivoted
I was just going to say, did you ever imagine the day where that would be the case?
Never. Never. I had a different, because it sounds like you're a business owner, and you're an entrepreneur, do your own thing. I had a totally different life and a totally different business before the pandemic. So I had like a drone photo and video business for years that I did.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then when COVID hit, it was like all the money that people had for like real estate or construction dried up. It was over with.
Yeah.
And my daughter was about 1. So I'm like a brand new dad. My business is shuttering. It's completely drying up. And my wife actually suggested you should do the Etsy thing was this part-time thing, like just, a maybe a couple grand a year or whatever,
little side hustle. Yeah,
exactly. Just a side hustle. And she was like, why don't you just do the comics full time? And I was like, that's crazy. That'll never work. That's not going to happen. I can't do that. How am I going to do that?
Yeah.
And then luckily I listened to her and started Cheddar Comics, and my life is completely turned around and 1,000 times better than before. So I'm grateful in many ways for the pandemic to take that business away from me.
Silver lining in there, right?
Absolutely. It's a lot of grind and stuff, but it pays off. It's so rewarding, and I know it I'm not just a seller, I'm a collector first. So, you get to make so many people's days, and so many people tell you so many. I get great stories all the time. Oh, I looked for this since I was a kid, or my dad and I bought that in a shop when I was, 12, and now I get it
Yeah,
back. And, you just get to hear so many great stories like that. It's so rewarding,
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love
So
it.
I derailed you a little bit. So you were saying that you got over and you kind of narrowed things down to where you're mainly focused on IG now for your sales and doing the live stream
100%.
on there. So
Yeah.
what kind of took you in that direction? Did you find you were getting a little more exposure there and in making most of your sales through there?
Yeah, it's a good question because so like last year, I mean, I did a little bit of Whatnot. I didn't really, some people have great success there, and I'm happy for them. It didn't really work for me. Um, and then my Etsy shop was just like going like down and down and down, and I didn't really know what to do. And last year I was lucky that I had a couple of, I had like two videos that went viral on Instagram last
Nice.
year. So I had one that hit 1 million views, and I had another one that hit like 947 or
That's
something.
amazing on Instagram. That's really good.
Yeah. So I went from like 2,000 followers to like 9,000 followers. So that really put a lot more people in that arena.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, maybe I should try it here. And I think I have the personality for it to be able to stream for a couple hours, and keep it entertaining.
Yeah,
Um,
and then you get that community too that people love. You start building that sense of community and a friend
yeah,
group.
no, and
People probably come there to hang out with you and chat. I don't think a lot of people realize that there's a lot of people out there that don't really have people they feel comfortable talking to. I've learned that
100%.
as a jujitsu instructor. For some people, I'm their only person they feel comfortable sharing certain things with, and
Yeah,
you kind of end up in my situation, you kind of end up being a little bit of a life coach too, because you have people coming to you with these things. So I bet you
yeah,
find you have your regulars that show up every week and are there to hang out.
absolutely. I mean, and it's kind of weird. You don't even really realize it when you're selling on eBay or, on Whatnot. It is very like, if it was me and you, right? Like, here's your comic. You took your comic. You leave a review.
Yeah.
It's kind of the end of it. And what was so great about Instagram was like people, message me and they show me it's in their room and it's on their wall, and
Nice.
they're like in love with it, and then they come back the next week later, and then now I'm very blessed because I know what a blessing it is to have
For sure.
so many people come back week after week, because that means that I'm doing something right, and that I'm not screwing people over, because I try to have like
Yeah.
good prices and good packing, and you get a little cheddar doodle in your package, and you get
Oh,
cards,
nice.
and
You do a little
so
artwork too?
yeah, I do a little doodle in there. It's
Nice.
nothing too crazy, but
That's awesome.
just to make it feel, because I buy all day every day, and it can be a very cold,
Yeah.
mechanical,
Very impersonal, right?
very impersonal. You're numbered, bop, bop, bop. Thanks for the $20. Here's your stuff, and
Yeah.
I try to make it feel a little different, but yeah, I'm very lucky that Instagram has worked. And so now I'm on there just 100%. If anything, I'm just doubling down more. I
Nice.
started doing a small Tuesday show for cheaper stuff. So now I'm doing every Thursday and every other Tuesday I do a show too.
Very cool. Now, how did the name come about? How did Cheddar Comics come to be? Has that always been the name when you were on Etsy as well?
No, I had a different name. It's a good question. I had a different name on there. I think it was called I called it the Pop Vault, because I would buy like other stuff, like toys or puzzles or whatever, when you're
Right.
kind of in that like thrifting game and hunting.
Yeah.
And then when I was trying to think of a name for the comic book, the new thing, I remember when I was doing a drone job, there was this guy I did it for, and he owned a furniture store. And he was really happy with the footage, because we were like flying around his furniture. And he was like, "You're going to make a lot of cheddar off of this." And I was like, "Oh man, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard like money
Yeah.
called cheddar in a long time." So, it's part like a money thing. It's part, I'm in Wisconsin,
Okay.
so it's part of a cheese thing, and then it's part just like
Totally.
just a silly, stupid name, to keep it
It
like
works.
light and fun, So
Yeah, it works on many levels.
yeah, I like it's got about 3 levels to it. So I was very happy that it worked. And now people just call me Cheddar, which I'm fine with too. Hey
There
Cheddar,
you
what's up,
go.
man?
Uh, Speaking of drones, what do you think all these weird drones that are showing up all over the East Coast and
It would,
flying over people's houses and
I wish I knew. I'm out of the business now. I don't know what's going on anymore.
apparently the size of cars too, like the size of like people are saying they're like the size of a Fiat or something, and some
That's
of them
crazy.
some of them don't make any noise and don't have any visible form of propulsion and all sorts of weird
That
stuff.
sounds very weird. All of mine were very loud and very obvious.
That's what I'm
You know,
saying, man.
you
Usually
know.
they're, especially if you're going to have one that big, you would think that thing would sound like a helicopter or something.
Yeah, I used to have one. The last one I had was like this big around, and it sounded like a Hummer. I mean, it was
Yeah.
so loud. So I don't know what that is. That's crazy.
Yeah, I feel like people aren't quite as concerned about it as they should be. They keep asking because they're like flying over military installations and, flying over people's houses, and they're like, yeah, we don't know where they're coming from. Like,
Yikes!
oh, okay.
Yikes!
When do we start getting concerned about this?
Yeah, I guess we're not really worried about them anymore.
Nobody panic. It's okay.
No, yeah, we don't need a war of the world situation.
No way, man. Yeah, I'm a UFO UAP nerd too, so I look at all this stuff and I'm like, okay, what's this maybe distracting us from, or is
Yes,
this is this
exactly.
is this the is this the new swamp gas? Like, oh, don't
Yes.
worry about it. There's just swamp gas, reflecting off of Venus or something.
Yep,
don't,
exactly
don't
that.
look at this, guys. Well, I wanted to ask you, when you were a kid, did you get into comics like way back? Has it been in your blood for a very long time?
It sure has. My dad started collecting comics in the '60s as a kid. And when I was born in the '80s, so not to date myself, but
You're
he
still younger
owned.
than me, brother. You're younger than me.
We're both young. We got a lot of time left, hopefully.
Yeah, yeah.
He owned 2 comic book stores in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, wow.
They
Okay.
were comic book stores slash sports cards.
Nice.
So, not that I spent a lot of time there, but, I knew that that's where my dad worked. He would bring home, I knew the characters maybe more than actual comics at that
Right.
age, before 5. But I knew Batman. I met Batman, he'd have his buddy dress up as Batman. And, I met Batman, as far as I was concerned.
Yeah.
At my 4th birthday party, he paid all of his friends to dress up as I had Batman, Robin, Spider-Man, and Superman at my birthday party.
Oh,
So,
that's amazing.
yeah, comic that kind of like culture and life was been around since I was born. So, and I tell people too, like, because I met Batman and I met Superman. I'm talking about them as they were real, but I thought that superheroes were real well into elementary school.
Okay.
And I learned that Santa, spoilers, that Santa wasn't real years before I learned that Batman and
Before.
Superman weren't real.
Oh, man.
So for me, like that was kind of like my base that I always thought that, well, if you get in trouble, Spider-Man will swoop in.
Yeah.
If you get in trouble, Superman will fly in. Which probably isn't, it's probably more of an imaginative foundation to live off of, but it was,
Yeah, it's not a bad place to operate,
no, not at all.
especially when you're young.
Yeah. So, that was around. And then my dad had to close his stores when I was 5. That '90s comic collecting bubble
Yeah, the
burst.
collapse. Yeah.
Yep. And he was right in there. So the stores closed. And that was kind of it for, besides like the shows and the games and all that kind of lived on through my childhood.
Yeah,
But
you were in that realm of all the cartoons and
yeah,
probably Batman the animated series and stuff like
exactly.
that, right?
Yeah, the X-Men animated series and the Batman animated, all that early '90s stuff. And So that was kind of like always around. And then comic collecting really came in when I was a teenager. I think I was maybe 12 or 13. We were at we took a family vacation to some little rinky-dink vacation town.
Yeah.
With like, moccasins for sale and gemstones, like one of those kind of towns.
Yes.
And we went into an antique store. And I had no interest in comics at this time, just the characters, of course. And we walk into the store. This is my origin story.
Nice.
And we walk into the antique store, and there's this glass case right when you walk in. This old lady's standing there. There's a single comic book in the glass case. And I look at it, and it's got Green Lantern on the cover. It ends up being Showcase 22, which is the first Hal Jordan Green Lantern.
Yes.
And I don't really know why I was so interested in it. I don't really get why, looking back, why I was so enamored with it. And I think, for my dad, when I think about it now, his store's been closed for maybe 8-9 years, and he sees his son taking interest in a comic book, and he's like, "Hey, are you interested in that book?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am. It's really cool,
It was like, calling to you.
Yeah. And he said, "Okay, cool. I'll get it for you." And he bought it for me, I think. And it wasn't like it wasn't like, it was like $300.
Yeah. That's even back then, that's a valuable book.
That's not, I was like, "Oh, okay. If you want to, I don't know why." And then that started for him and me, like one of my favorite periods for the two of us. We started collecting together for the next like 5 years straight as a teenager.
Oh, awesome.
And his deal was like, we're going to collect, and then we'll sell these. This was the bitter part. We're going to sell these to pay for college when you go to college.
Right.
Which I was like, that's a fair deal when you're 13.
You're like, don't think much of it then.
You're not thinking about yourself when you're 18 and you're going to sell these.
Yeah.
So that kind of started like a 5-year run of, he taught me how to grade. I learned about the Silver Age and Golden Age and all the key books. And, that was really like the foundation for everything later on, was those couple of years.
That's so cool that you guys shared that together. That's really special.
I love it. Yeah, it was very special. Now that I have a 4-year-old, and that really kind of focused in how special that period was for the two of us.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, the big question is, was the Showcase issue one of the ones that went to supply the college fund?
Every single book that we collected. Oh. And I had only asked him to keep that one, because even by the time I get to 18, I knew how special that was.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Can I just keep the Showcase 22? And he's like, "No, we agreed. Everything's got to get sold. Like, I got to pay for this school." I was like,
hey, he was a man of his word then.
He was. He followed through on it.
As hard as that is to grasp. It's
there was only two I asked about, and it was that one. And it was, we went to, as a family, it makes it sound like we took tons of vacations, but I think I'm mentioning the 2 vacations we took.
No, but those are core memories, right? So they stand out for you. Yeah.
We went to, he took us all to San Diego Comic-Con in like 2003, I think.
Okay.
And it's kind of on that cusp when like Hollywood's starting to come in more, and, Hugh Jackman's there for Van Helsing or whatever.
Yeah.
And we had bought a book on the floor, and it was an Amazing Spider-Man 14, which is the first Green Goblin.
Yeah.
And we take it back. I think maybe he saw, I don't know if he saw when we were there. He flipped it open. He was like, "Yeah." He like looked at me and he was like, "Yeah, Chris, let's get this one." I was like, "Okay, great." And then we like walk away, and he's like, "That guy had no idea. It's signed by Stan Lee on the first page." And I was like, "No way, show it to me." He flips it open, signed by Stan Lee. I've got a dealer
that people didn't know how to, didn't know to check for that back in those days. And even now, nowadays, sometimes you'll find stuff like that too, every now and again.
Absolutely. It was crazy, because it was like, you're a dealer on the Comic-Con floor.
Yeah, you would think that person would know to double check.
So that was like a nice score. We were all, yay, So that I love that one because I remember that, but
Yeah.
they all got sold, which is okay.
Now, have you toyed with the idea of reacquiring some of these special ones from your childhood?
It's so funny you say that because I don't know if you do this for your year in, year out. I just started doing it last year where I put like a small list of like 6 books, that I'm gonna like hone in on.
This is something I need to do.
Okay, cool.
I'm still in the very much like, oh, I want this, I want that, just grabbing stuff as I go, because I just started collecting again, seriously about a year ago.
Oh, cool.
Maybe a little over a year ago is when I got back into it. So
awesome.
now I feel like I'm kind of in that making up for lost time phase. Like I didn't get rid of any of my stuff, but now I'm in the this looks cool, I want to get this, and I got into getting some graded stuff and this and that. So now I definitely want to slow my roll a bit and get in that phase you're talking about where it's like I'm looking for these 5 books this year or whatever, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, and it's for me like too, and I'm sure you have the same. It sounds like you have the same problem where it's like I have like a spreadsheet. It's like, or all these, or if you have Key Collector, you can keep your want list in there.
I have Key Collector, and I use CLZ to track my collection, and I have my wish list on there. And yeah. So I have gotten more organized, so that at least that's good.
So I've been the same, and literally until this year. This is the first year where I was like, I'm gonna just hone in. I'm gonna just like focus on 6.
Yeah.
Not that I won't buy anything else, because sometimes you're like, oh, that's kind of
totally
cool. Or
too good to pass up.
Yeah, if it's not a big one, if it's $20 or whatever your budget is, it's different for everybody. But for me, it's like I wanted to focus on the 6. So this year I did that, and I actually accomplished all of them, which I was very surprised.
That's awesome.
Because my biggest one this year, I was like, I've been wanting this book for 20 years. I never had it.
I can already tell you're going to make me jealous before you even pull that book up on the screen. Everybody make sure you watch the video version if you're not already, because he's going to show something really cool here.
20 years.
20 years in the making.
Never had it. I tried buying it a couple times, and I've been piss poor almost my entire adult life. So,
right.
This was one that I was like never going to get. And I put on the list this year. I was like, I don't know how the hell I'm going to do this, but you put them in there, and then you're like, it's almost like manifesting.
You're manifesting it, dude. Yeah, you're totally.
You're manifesting it, and you're also slimming down possibilities too. So you feel more like, okay, we're going to do this. So I was able to trade a bunch of stuff, and I finally got.
See. Because I was going to tell you that's like my one right now.
Is it
too.
really?
I had a feeling that was going to be what you held up.
See, you knew it. We're connected.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm a big X-Men
4
fan.
Is great, man.
I was so happy with it too, and I just mostly cared that it had the Marvel value stamp, and that it was complete and stuff, or not restored.
So for people not watching, he just held up Hulk 181, which is the widely considered the first appearance. I just got 180 down
nice.
at Rose City Comic-Con this year. So
that's awesome.
I was excited about that, even though it's technically not considered the first, accepted first appearance, full first appearance or whatever. I was still super stoked.
Whichever one you have, that's the first appearance.
Yeah. I was like, man, I will get my 181 one of these days. But what happened was I was seriously starting to look earlier this year, and this dude at this booth, he's like, oh, what are you interested in? I'm like, oh, could I see that, Hulk 181 you have over there? And he was like, oh, yeah. He goes, if you're not interested in that one, I've got like 8 more. And he handed me like a stack of them to look through. And I'm just like leafing. I'm like, I am holding like tens of thousands of dollars in my hands right now.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I didn't pull the trigger, which I'm glad I didn't, because everything was spec'd up because of that rumor leaked. Right around that time was when the rumor came out that he was going to be in Deadpool and Wolverine. So everybody had those prices, Rightfully so. They cranked the prices up and got a lot of people to, spend more on them. But I was like, I gotta wait till it goes back to where it levels out a little bit after
100%.
that. So hopefully next year will be the year for me. So I'm manifesting it now.
There you
I'm
go.
saying it with you, 2025.
You're gonna get it. I know it. It's a good time too after the movie.
Such a special book, man.
I love it. I mean, the cover, the book, I mean, for X-Men, I mean, it's like, besides X-Men, I made a list. I'm like, because I've been focusing on the X-Men because I was worried that they were going to cut. This was when the MCU was like solid every time and every book was spec. So like 5 years ago. So I started to focus on the X-Men because I didn't want that to happen with them, and then lose out on them again.
Yeah.
So I started to focus on them, and I kind of figured out, I was like, the top 2 X-Men books are X-Men 1 and Hulk 181.
Yep.
So it was like, oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna do this year. This is gonna be tough.
You nailed it, man. Yeah.
Why?
For me, Hulk and Wolverine are my 2 favorite characters. So that book is like the ultimate.
Well, that's crazy.
Ultimate Grail.
Yeah. Well, that's great then.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll happen. It's just got to be the right timing. And it's not like there's any shortage of that book out there. Like when you want to find it, it's just like giant size X-Men. It's got a crazy value, but there was a lot of them made. There's a lot of them floating around out there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But they hold their value.
Yeah, and I mean, they're just so desirable, those 2 books, especially I think for the Bronze Age, they're kind of like maybe the top 2 books to get.
Definitely. So what else was on your list?
This year I had Hulk 180.
Okay.
Your Hulk 180, because I was like, I'm probably not gonna get 181. So if I can at least get 80, I'll be happy. I had Fantastic Four 48.
Okay.
The first Silver Surfer.
Yep.
I had X-Men 94. Because I was trying to knock out some X-Men, but not like because I collect other stuff. I collect Batman, I collect Marvel, so I didn't want to I don't want to have the list be all X-Men and then, I had the first Harley Quinn, Batman Adventures 12 on there because I was trying to get the Rogues Gallery. So, that I got that this year. I forgot what the other one. Oh, I got a 9/8, Spider-Man 1 signed by McFarlane.
Awesome.
So I tried to get my three, as you can see, I opened up my McFarlane Wizard shirt.
Yeah. I'm a OG McFarlane guy, man.
Me too, dude. So that and Spawn 1, and X-Men 1 are like my favorite books,
Yeah, I got a 9/8 of Spawn 1. When I first started getting graded stuff, I went after stuff that I had nostalgia over, from the stuff I collected. So yeah, I ended up getting that and a lot of the Image first issue, the Image stuff, because I was in that. I worked at the comic shop that Todd co-owned with his brother-in-law here in Washington State. So
that's cool.
Yeah, so it was a surreal experience. I've talked about it probably way more than people care to hear on this podcast, but as a 16-year-old, your first job is working for Todd McFarlane's brother-in-law in a shop that Todd McFarlane co-owns, and Todd McFarlane comes to the shop and you get to hang out with him and stores all his original art there. Hundreds of giant brown paper bags full of Amazing Spider-Man pages, Hulk pages, you name it. You just drool over that stuff on every lunch break.
That is just crazy.
Yeah, it was cool, surreal. Bro. Yeah,
it's such a
that's one of those where they say you'll never forget that. Like all your other memory can go, you're gonna remember that thing. It was like, yeah, those were great times. Got to meet a lot of the Image guys that would come through for signings and stuff. And yeah, so when I started getting into the graded stuff, I'm like, okay, I got to knock off some of my favorite McFarlane stuff and
definitely
some of the Image first issues and all of that. So I knew it was going to be a slippery slope when I got into graded stuff, because it's like once I got one, I know I'm going to want more, but I tried to narrow my focus on that, and I've been pretty good. I think I've been doing pretty good. I got, like first appearance of Deadpool, second appearance of Deadpool, stuff like that.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm not going too crazy. I'm not buying everything graded. I do want that Spider-Man one though. I definitely need to get one of those graded.
For sure. Yeah, I was kind of curious, like, is it mostly your PC, is it like some slab and mostly raws, or do you like
mostly, so mass majority right now is raw. I probably have, gosh, now, actually I could tell you, let me look. How many slabs do I have now? I only have, let me see. I might not have added the most recent one. No, I did. I have 19. I have 19 graded books. Nice. But I have probably close to 10,000 raw books. Wow. So yeah, it's, but for me, my personal collection, like I collected and accumulated so much stuff over the years that, like, I had a jiu-jitsu student that loved to win storage auction, the auctions for the storage units. Yeah. And so many times he would get one that would have like 5 or 6 long boxes in it. And he'd be like, hey, do you want these? I'll trade them for training. No. And I'm like, yeah, don't get rid of them. I'll take them.
Definitely.
And, no questions asked. And so I probably had about 8 or 9 long boxes during that period where I wasn't collecting. I still took them, and they sat in my storage room for all these years until recently. And then I started going through them all and being like, oh man, I wish I would have gone through this sooner, because there was a lot of good stuff in there.
That's cool though.
So that added and bulked my collection like crazy. So now, and this kind of segues into what I wanted to talk to you about next, is I would like to eventually get into, doing some selling and stuff, and branch out and kind of narrow my collection and facilitate purchasing things like that Hulk 181 that I want through getting rid of some of the bulk of these collections and everything. So what would be your kind of top advice for somebody who's first getting into, like, either selling through Instagram or YouTube and these types of things? Like, I'm sure there's been a lot of trial and error, and you've got things narrowed down quite a bit in the time that you've done this. So where's a good place to start for somebody who's wanting to get into that community and start offloading some books?
It's a good question, because it's kind of hard when you're at that and this, just for being our age, that first step is hard.
Yes.
And like, where do you go? So I definitely recommend, a lot of people do recommend live selling, but some people don't have some people don't want to be on camera or talk. You have to talk for 3 hours to nobody, by the way.
Well, and my thing is, I don't have 3 hours to devote.
And that too. So it's like, if you have like one book, I recommend definitely my go-tos for starting out are either Instagram. If you have friends, you don't have to have thousands of followers. If you have friends and stuff, or they might share it, Instagram might be the way, or eBay, to kind of get through the ropes on, shipping. eBay is nice for like figuring out how, because you make your label on there, and because shipping's a huge part of it.
Oh yeah.
And it's not the fun part, but it's the part that, like, for me, I have my Thursday show. I send out totals Friday morning. I'm spending from noon to probably 10 p.m. on Friday just packing those boxes.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a big part of it. Learning how to grade is a big part too, because you don't want to be upsetting your buyer by saying this is a very fine, and they get it and they're like, hey, I don't know how you did that. This is a very good,
Yeah. Let's segue and circle back around to this topic, but let's segue, because I wanted to ask you, when you mentioned that you learned how to grade from your dad, what goes into that, man? It's so subjective. Like I
It's
have the
so
books. I have
subjective.
the CGC book, and I have the other one, the Overstreet one, and
Yeah.
I'm reading through them. But there's so much to it. Is it just something you get better at over time and practice? And
100%, and honestly, it's like, I disagree with people that say like you could bullseye every grade. Honestly, it's total BS. I mean,
yeah,
it's totally subjective. Some people, like I used to downgrade for discoloration and CGC will not.
right.
I used to downgrade for a detached staple. CGC, you can have an 8.0 with a detached staple.
Yeah, it was interesting. I
You
kind of
know,
noticed that about CGC with one of I have this issue of Captain America with the Steranko cover. The white,
nice.
it's the white cover.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
it's
I
the
love that one.
iconic, yeah, the
Very fused like
iconic one.
this.
Yes, but it's very discolored, but it still
Yeah.
has a great grade. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait, like this isn't like hardly white at all. What's going on? Like
Yeah.
that can get a good grade. So stuff like that kind of every time I think I kind of know, it kind of throws me off a little bit.
Yeah, and I used to buy a lot from before Cheddar and I had like the Etsy shop and stuff. I traded a lot with mycomicshop.com.
Yeah.
And I love them because they are the most conservative graders. So you would get it and you'd buy an 8.0.
Right.
Like I bought a Spider-Man 300 of First Venom for my birthday one year with a bunch of trade credit. And it was an
Nice.
8.0 and I got it and I was like, this is like maybe a 9.2
Right.
or something. I got it clean and pressed and slammed 9.6.
Beautiful.
So like there's a lot of places like that where I would get kind of reschooled by their grading,
Mm-hmm.
and like look at how other people grade. And honestly, it is just a numbers game, and you have to, and it's not the best answer, but you have to like get kind of burned and tested and go
Yeah.
through it and see over and over again. Is it a 4? Is it a 6?
Do
And
you find there's
yeah,
value in underestimating a little bit? Kind of like it sounds like mycomicshop.com is doing, like, because somebody like you, they know you're going to get it. And it's like you were thinking you're getting an 8, and
yeah,
then you get it, and you're like, oh my God, like, this is great. Like, I wonder if
definitely.
there's a little bit of a method behind, a little purpose behind doing that, right?
Absolutely. And I do that as Chris inside Cheddar Comics. I try to be my grading, I try to be conservative. And the
Yeah.
thinking behind that as a seller is that I am avoiding headaches. I'm avoiding returns. I'm
Yep.
avoiding problems. I'm avoiding unhappy customers. And therefore it's turning it into a positive because I don't have, I think I've had in 3 years, I've had one single return on a grade.
That's a great track record.
And I sell like 3 to 6 or probably 3 to 4 lawn boxes a week. So,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Going through like thousands and thousands of books, but think
Yeah.
about how
Yeah.
many problems I've avoided,
Totally.
how many happy people, people buy from me. Now I have one guy who comes back because he knows he's like, oh, well, Cheddar's calling it an 8. So
You're making me want to buy from you. When we get off of here, I'm gonna have to see what
yeah,
you've got.
please. I mean, I try, it's either like it's a little under or it's right on, and the
Yeah.
worst thing is to buy something that's, oh, it's a 4.0 and then you get it and you're like, yeah, there's ripped apart. It's,
Yeah.
there's a coupon missing or, that's the worst. I started that too, not only as like, to avoid things, but as a buyer myself, I got burned so much over
Yeah.
the
You've dealt
years.
with it. You've been on the receiving end of
Yeah,
stuff like that.
you get it. You're like, this coupon is like, there's a whole page cut out. The
Yeah.
cover is detached. I wouldn't have bought it like that. So you don't want that. You want people to be happy and, you know, two, the comic community is the best community, but in the big scheme, it's a small community.
Very small.
So if you're burning people, and as a seller, I've heard this over and over and over again. Oh, I got burned by this person and it turned me off from collecting for years. Oh, I got scammed by this person and I've been away from collecting for years. It's like,
Yeah.
we are so small. We have to protect our community from every wolf out there.
Yeah.
To make sure that
there's a lot of them. There's a lot of them out there.
I just had it, and I try not to be negative with Cheddar, but
yeah,
I just had it this week. I just got scammed out of money. So, and then I put it out there.
And your radar is probably like up here compared to most people.
Definitely. And I mean, I was, and it's like, I've had that before where it's like, I'm kind of concerned about somebody and then they pull through and they pay and they're great. And it's just because their profile didn't have a picture or whatever.
I got burned one time on an Instagram purchase.
Really?
And thankfully it was only like a $30 thing.
Oh, well, yeah.
But all the red flags were there.
Sure.
It seemed too good to be true. The communication was funky. Hey, when's it going to ship out? And then you keep getting in a couple of days, And they like all the warning signs were there, but I still I made the mistake of trusting. You want to, I think it's human nature, well, at least the way I am. I like giving people the benefit of the doubt.
Definitely.
Any interaction I have with somebody, I learned this through, interacting with so many people, being a owner of a business. It's like everyone is fighting a battle or dealing with things that we don't know about, right? So
absolutely.
To what scale that is, who knows? It could be something we consider very minor. It could be, their best friend is dying or whatever.
Yep.
So I deal with people in that manner. So same thing. Oh, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe he's really busy. He can't get it shipped out, but ended up being a situation where took the money and ran and blocked me and did all that stuff. And
terrible.
Yeah.
They're the worst.
Yeah.
They're the worst because then they poison the well.
Yes.
And luckily you're cool and understanding. And luckily it was only $30. It would have been
exactly.
Not that's
that person, because I put it on blast out to what little connection with the community
good.
I had back then.
That's what you got to do.
They had books on there that were thousands and thousands of dollars.
Exactly. And and that's why for me, I did that this week and I hate doing it. I honestly hate doing it. I hate putting somebody out there and saying like, this was a horrible story. Because it's 0.1% of my interactions.
Yeah.
But I feel a duty to the community, to not, because I have friends who are following this guy, and I'm like, you guys are he did a bank reversal. So luckily I had the books here still. But he had his bank say it was a fraudulent charge.
Yeah.
So he got his money back. I got charged $15 in dispute fees.
Right.
But I had the books, which was good because I got to resell them and lose the 15 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I hate putting that stuff out there. And then I did. And then what happens? This guy actually did the same thing to me. This guy did the same thing to me. And then I find 4 other people that he did this to, and nobody knew because we weren't connecting to each other.
That happened with me and this dude or this person.
Same thing.
It's like I put it in. It's like, thanks for letting me know. I was gonna buy this from him, but I thought it seemed weird. Yeah. And it was like a way more expensive book that they were gonna pull the trigger on, and they, thankfully,
those are the ones I see.
If I helped one person by putting it out there,
worth it,
But at the same time, there was people who were almost protective because this person had gotten their way wormed into the community enough that there was actually people trying to stand up for him and being like, I'm like, no, but here's what they did. Here's the screenshot of everything. They did not follow through. They took my money. And so it was interesting because they were like, well, don't be flaming somebody if you don't know. And I'm like, yeah, but here's what happens.
I do know, actually.
I do know. My money is gone.
Yeah. There's always the people that are, it's like that Simpsons meme of the guy jumping in front of,
yeah,
Apu or
and
whatever.
I get it because I've had friends who are sellers who have been put on blast who literally weren't doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
and maybe the communication broke or the person misinterpreted the timeline they were giving them, whatever.
Definitely.
And they got put on blast and it hurt their selling. So I get it. Like I'm sure that happens every now and again, but at the same time, when you've got screenshots, when you have the receipts, as they say, you're like, no, look, here's what he said. And that's, yeah. So it's interesting. I would hope that is not the norm, right? It seems like for the most part, the community is very positive, and I've only ran into it that one time, and I've bought God knows how much stuff now through online means. So
no, thankfully it is beyond the minority of situations. You know, even for me as a buyer and as a seller, because I sell more than I buy, you know, because that's my full-time gig, you know, but for like out of all those 3 long boxes of stuff I sell every week, you know, maybe 40, 50, 60 customers a week, it's like maybe I'll have one, you know, and it's not even like really, it's not even a problem. It's like, hey, can I pay you Friday? I'm like, oh yeah, that's no problem.
Right.
You know, it's
communication is key. Yeah.
100%. And that's what I always tell everybody. I was like, just tell me that, you know, just don't leave me on scene. But no, everything is so positive, and it really is such a, I've never felt like this type of community before, like in my life. I mean, how wonderful people are, how kind people are, so generous and warm and sweet, and they want to help, and you know, there's just nothing.
My wife and I noticed that carries over when we go to Comic Cons, because it's just like such a positive experience. You like talk to people while you're in line for things, or you're flipping through long boxes and looking at back issues, and the person next to you sparks up a conversation and you hit it off. And so it seems like that carries over into the online community as well.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Now, so going back to the tips for somebody who's starting out and getting into it, it seems like communication's big. We just established, you know, open communication. Probably narrowing down, like you did, what the best platform is to sell on based on your own circumstances and how much time you have to commit.
Definitely.
I think that's probably huge, right?
Yeah. And I mean, too, even for like as a buyer, you know, like I have like different types of buyers. So I have like buyers that love being in the live sales, and they're there and they claim and they love it. And then I have other people that don't like that, and they want to do like they only buy from me during the claim sales when I like post a photo. So
they can literally just put a comment and
and a lot of people, and I get it too, like you're at work, or you know, you can't, some of my guys are like, I'm at work right now, but can I click? Hey, I missed that book. I'm at work right now. Can I try to, you know? So I think too, for you as a seller, or if you want to sell, you know, you can figure out what works for you. You know, if posting a photo is easier because you don't have a lot of time because you're running a business, you know, that can be a lot easier than getting on there for however long and flipping through stuff, you know.
I tend to have way too many hobbies.
Get that.
Yeah, between the business and then, you know, most of my hobbies are physical. I do the arm wrestling, I do jiu-jitsu, and then my only non-physical hobbies are my artwork and comics.
Nice. Yeah, so, that's good.
Yeah, so I got to just figure out how I can distribute this time, and you know, I think scheduling is probably a big element to being regimented, and like that's the only reason this podcast has worked compared to my other one, because I knew I wanted to start this one because I'm so passionate and I have so much love for the comic community and artists and collectors and everything. But I knew if I was going to do it, I had to be regimented, and I have to stay like for instance, you know, I'm like 3 or 4 episodes in the can right now ahead.
Oh, nice.
So it's like, if I can maintain that,
yeah,
they can keep coming out weekly and I don't feel too much pressure and all of that. So I think probably the same thing for, you know, when you start selling, you kind of be like, This is my selling day. This is my packing day. This is taking stuff to the post office, right?
I have that problem with, so like this last year, thankfully has been like a explosive, like good business year for this is the most successful I've ever been in my adult life. That's
amazing.
The last 12 months. I don't know what to do with I don't know what is going on.
Right,
I don't really get it. You know, I've
just
been
keep riding the wave, man.
Yeah, I've had a series of, my adult life has been nothing but a walk of failures, you know. So by the time I got to Cheddar, I was like, I got nothing to lose, whatever, you know, let's just try to be happy and healthy, and, you know, it happened to work out. But I'm having the same thing that you're talking about with like my video stuff. So like last year I started a YouTube channel, and I got like a couple videos in, and it's easier for me to do shorts, but it's hard for me to find the time with the business being so good, you know, and kind of like took over. I was like, oh, I don't know how to really do both of these as one is kind of exploding, you know. So for the next year, I'm trying to focus and be more regimented with my video work.
And people don't realize how long editing video takes.
Oh my God.
If you want it to turn out halfway decent, right?
Right now I'm doing a long form, and it's about I'd like to do more like history of, I have a lot of interest in the history of comics, because I feel like it's not really a story that's told very often.
Yeah.
So and I'm working on the history of corner box art. You know, like our little favorite there from the Silver Age.
Yep.
Who created it?
Put that comic back.
Oh yeah, you
want
to see this one? I
brought a good one.
I brought out my couple of favorites here.
Yeah.
This is my X-Men number 4.
Amazing.
First appearance of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Signed by
Stan Lee, by me. It was about a year before he passed. He came to Madison, Wisconsin for some reason.
Wow.
And my wife and I were, again, piss poor. And I somehow scrounged together a couple $100 to go see him.
Nice.
And this is my favorite comic in my collection. So
yeah, that's amazing.
My dad told me, he was like, if you're gonna meet Stan, you better have him sign a good book. And I was like, I don't have a good book. So
well, and those that's a really good grade too, because you can tell the red. A lot of times the red is an issue on Magneto and in the background gradient and everything.
That red and yellow, that red and yellow always goes. I got this on eBay right before, and at the time, dude, what was crazy, I got this for $250.
Oh wow.
It was before like this book got explosive because of Scarlet Witch here.
Yeah.
I don't remember what movie it was, but one of the movies caused this book to go crazy, and I got it before that, luckily. But yeah, and it came, I got the, you know, the COA with
certified and everything. Nice.
Yep. And it's got, not that that's on the book, but a little, you know, Stanley certified thing. So yeah, this one's going, my kid will be cleaning this out of my house when I'm there. That's how long.
Well, what else do you got sitting there?
The one I've got is my new one. So we've got the old Kirby Magneto.
Okay.
And then my most recent pickup, this one took me a year to find.
Oh yeah.
But it is X-Men number 1.
Speaking my language with Jim Lee.
Here we go, right? This is our era.
Yep.
This one took me a year to find like this, James, because I was over particular about this book. So I wanted a 9/8, got it. I wanted the custom label because they have that cool new custom label with the artwork.
Yep. Looks great.
And then signed by Jim and Claremont. So that took 12 months. I only saw this come up twice. This is only the second time it ever came up.
Yeah, that's a crazy copy.
Yeah, beautiful. I was like, okay, cool. And that was on my next year's list. I had to start dipping into my next year's list.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, now you just need to add another one to next year.
So easy for me. I think next year I'm debating about a redemption, or not redemption, but getting back ones I have lost, like back to our Showcase 22. So I'm like,
I was going to say, man, I think the circle needs to be complete, and you need to start hunting some of the ones from your childhood.
I think you've decided it today, because I've been debating, because I was like, you know, it's kind of hard, because I would love an X-Men 1, but I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to spend at this, as the recording of this podcast. I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
that I'm ready to spend that kind of dough, on a single book.
So when you come on here again in the future and
There we
you've
go.
gotten that one, I'm going to replay that part to you.
Replay this, right?
I'm going to replay this.
Yeah.
Remember when you said you didn't see yourself?
Well, and you know what? I said that about the Hulk 181, and here
That's
I
what
am
I'm
looking
saying,
at
and
it.
now you're speaking it into being.
So I'm thinking about the show. I just missed that Showcase 22 so much, and it's been
Yeah.
about, it's almost 20 years at this point. So I
Yeah,
think
and you've got that special connection with your dad through that and everything. I mean, that's such a cool.
I think that I was like, I want that, and I want that Goblin. But I won't get Stan Lee's signature on it again, but I want that first Goblin badge.
Yeah.
It's just too cool.
Now, from there, when you started really getting into collecting as a teenager, what kind of books were you collecting? Like, what were your favorites? If you had to pick like a top 2 or 3 books, and I always ask this too, like, I can sense that you like McFarlane stuff. Like, did you go after certain artists? Was that how you chose what you were picking up, or were you more about the stories? Like me, I was always more like following artists from book to book because I was into art.
Yeah.
So that was like my thing, But what about you? What was it like for you, and what kind of directed where you were focusing your attention?
That first collection, the collection I have today is a little different than that one. That one particularly was like about, because we knew that we were going to sell it at the end of the 5 years. So me and my dad, we really focused on like keys.
Okay.
So I went after, but my favorite was Green Lantern because of the showcase. So
right.
I just got like really into Green Lantern. This is one of the only things I still have from my teenage years.
Oh, that's awesome.
This little, what's not awesome, James, is wearing this ring to high school every single day.
Well, that depends on who you talk to, man.
I think maybe that kept a lot of people away from me.
You might have just grown up in the wrong time, because I think if you did that now, if a kid did that now, they'd probably be pretty cool.
They'd be very cool, which is a blessing in itself.
How the times have changed.
How they've changed, right? So I had a lot of, I had Green Lantern 1 through 100. I had all his first appearances. I had a lot of Spider-Man keys. And then those were gone. And then, I'm sure you've heard it before. It's like college came. I had no interest in comics, really. I got more interested in other stuff, and kind of went a different direction. And then it came back later when I met my wife, because we're college sweethearts. I met her at film.
Awesome.
Yeah, we went to film school together.
Okay.
And I met her there, and she was like, I think I had Watchmen or something, like the trade paperback. She's like, "What is this, comics?" I was like, "Oh, are you interested in that? I've been burying that for years, And she kind of opened up a whole new stage of collecting.
That's so cool.
And yeah, it was really cool. She's so supportive. So the new collection, the collection I have now, which I've had for maybe 10 years, is I have a lot of McFarlane. I focus on I almost got all the McFarlanes I want last year.
Nice.
Wizard and Amazing Spider-Man and Spawn and Hulk and even like All-Star Squadron and Coyote and all the stuff he did.
Infinity Inc.
Infinity
Inc. Yeah. I have an original page from Infinity Inc.
Oh, no way. That's
Splash
killer.
Page. Yeah, Splash
sweet.
Page.
Yeah, so that a lot of Jim Lee. Obviously I love Jim Lee's X-Men. And then there's a lot of, I just have a lot of X-Men is the biggest part of my collection. So probably I don't have much. It's probably maybe 8 short boxes, something like that. It's pretty slim. I'm not really a big run space kind of person. I have to fit it in my closet. So
yeah.
I have to keep, the business takes all the other space,
I bet. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lot of X-Men. I like first appearances. I like certain artists. Obviously the ones from my childhood mean the most.
Right.
But I love Batman. I love Spider-Man.
Sounds like we have similar tastes, I think.
Yeah,
you're
definitely.
speaking my language with the Jim Lee and the McFarlane and everything else. I mean, that was big for me.
Definitely, you can't go wrong. Well, so you have great taste, is what I'm hearing.
I like to think so. Some people would disagree.
So I like a lot of that, and then but then I have that one foot that's like an old man because I love Silver Age. You know, I love Steranko and Kirby and Neil Adams.
I was going to ask you about Kirby, because Kirby was somebody that I talked about this on, I think, with Mon Comics on the most recent episode that came out, about how, as somebody who was into art, like, I didn't like Kirby's style when I was first collecting, and I thought it looked funky and all these different things. And then as I became a better artist, I realized just how much of a command of the fundamentals he had to have to basically break the rules, right?
Exactly.
So then I gained this whole new appreciation, and when I started collecting again, that's the main thing I've been going after is just a ton of Kirby stuff.
And I think that my dad is the same. My dad loathes Kirby. He's never liked Kirby. And I can see it because he has a very blocky form, you know, and that's kind of how it comes off as first. And then, like, as you're saying, like, once you kind of delve in more, you see the dynamic force and the energy. And I think that energy isn't what people appreciate at first, you know, and how much it punches through that panel, you know.
Yeah, somebody described it as basically like he would have a foot in a different time zone than the fist. Like, it looked like the figure was moving. Definitely. The way that he did his perspective and how dynamic everything was. And that really resonated with me. I'm like, that makes sense. Like, that's totally what he's doing. There's so much life in his expressions and the figures and the use of perspective and everything. So as I, got better as an artist myself, I realized just how difficult that stuff is to pull off. And I gained a whole new appreciation.
Well, and too, like, I think a lot of people, appreciate more, like, and I do too, like Neil Adams, like realism, like how real Jon Stewart looks and stuff. But with Kirby, or McFarlane talked about this when he was first applying to become an artist. Like, he was trying to break in. There's a great book about the art of McFarlane, and he shows all of his rejection letters.
Yep, it's over here.
Yeah, you got it.
Shelf over there. Yep.
And the thing I really love about McFarlane's story is what he hears over and over again is like, yeah, you can draw good, but what is your storytelling?
Yes.
How are you breaking the story down in these 6 panels? How are you telling the story page after page? That's all we're interested in. We're not interested in how good you can draw Superman, and I think that Kirby particularly is the master of it, because if you know the Marvel style, which was Kirby draws it, and they obviously it gets a little murky.
It does. With the debate will forever be,
but they are Lennon and McCartney to me, Lee and Kirby. And I think that even if Stan had some idea and Kirby or whatever, Kirby has a lot on his shoulders because he has to tell most of the story without the script. So and I think a lot of that is shown more so kind of like, Brady leaving the Patriots and going to Tampa Bay and getting a Super Bowl. Kirby goes to DC and creates the fourth world with Mr. Miracle and Darkseid and does it all sorts of crazy
stuff.
It kind of proves like, okay, I'm not dissing Lee, because I think that we wouldn't have anything without Lee.
Yeah, I love them both, man. Yeah. I love them both. I don't think you have to not like the other because you like one of them. I mean, I think you can like them both in their own respective rights and everything. So I remember Neil Adams talking about Kirby in a documentary, and he was basically saying, like, other artists would be like talking smack about Kirby, and he'd be like, yeah, but can you draw a figure that looks that powerful?
Yeah.
Like with your style? And they'd be like, I don't know. Because there's certain restrictions that doing things, quote unquote, properly as far as anatomy and how, how far a person can twist their torso and stuff, that if you're going to draw it realistically, where it wouldn't break if the person actually did that, their spine's going to break. You can only get things so dynamic. So Definitely. He was breaking rules to make things more exciting and fun. And I think that's what comes across for a lot of people who get into Kirby stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's why he's the master, or why he's King Kirby, because I think in a lot of ways, if you look at like Golden Age books, like in Golden Age books came from newspaper strips. So, if you kind of follow it, you really do see like how much it was before and after Kirby as far as comic book art,
Totally.
And I think a lot of the industry still lives in his shadow in a lot of ways.
Definitely, my friend. Well, listen, I don't want to keep you too long because I know
don't get us started on Kirby. We could go for another 8 hours. We could sit
here for another rest of the day, but I wanted to, because I want to have you back on. So I always tell people that I want to have back on. I don't want to do everything on the first visit, and so
save some stuff.
If you would be so kind, I would love to have you back on in the future.
Yeah.
When you pick up that book that you said you don't see how you're going to be able to pick it up.
Don't make me wait that long, but
it may be sooner than you think.
Yeah,
just like that Hulk 181.
Exactly.
But I wanted to give you a chance to have the stage here and let everybody know where they can find you, how they can support, how they can buy from you, so they're on the lookout for those Instagram lives and the claim sales that you do on there. So the floor is yours, my friend.
Thank you so much. I'm on Instagram. I'm Cheddar_comics. As of this, I have a show every single Thursday. It's a big key show. All the big stuff goes in there. We run about 3 hours every Thursday.
Nice.
And there is also a smaller, like $3 show or claim sale every other Tuesday for some cheaper stuff, but a lot of bulk. But good titles. And then you can find me on YouTube, where I'm trying to get more strict about my video content output. And that's Cheddar Comics. And hopefully maybe by the time this comes out, I'll be done with my history of cornerbacks art documentary.
Awesome.
So, be on the lookout for that stuff. And that's where you can find me.
All right. Well, listen, hang out with me for a moment while I tell everybody what to do. I got to get bossy and tell people where they can find the thing and where they should watch it. Everybody, if you're already watching this, you'll know it's on youtube.com/@nerdymewzings. You can also listen to it on all your favorite audio podcast platforms. I encourage you to like, subscribe, share, all those good things if you've been enjoying the podcast. We have all sorts of awesome people on here like Chris and a lot of pro Marvel and DC artists and writers and former editors of IDW and people I could have never imagined would want to come on my little nothing podcast here.
That's awesome.
So everybody make sure you do all that. And in the meantime, everybody, keep it nerdy.